Good morning, everyone. Everybody. Everyone.
Good morning.
Today is Wednesday. Wednesday, December the 23rd. Correct?
Yeah, 2020, no, it's the 23rd, yeah, 23rd, yeah.
I always end up being confused on my dates, but anyway. I take it back. Today is Tuesday, the 23rd.
Exactly.
Tuesday, the 23rd. Well, we'll get it right eventually. Good morning to everybody. Once again, with myself, Frank Castillo, the host of your Frankly Speaking program, along with our co-host,
Memo Castro.
So we wanted to say, the first topic we want to bring up is to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, to make sure people are aware that we are in a holiday season, that not only is it a Christian holiday, there's others, I believe, that have holidays at this time of the year. I've never had any problem saying Merry Christmas, though I don't know where it's coming from, to not say it or say it. I think maybe being able to always be mindful of your guests who might have a different season and different spiritual faith that they follow, the Jewish perhaps, some of the other ones that I can't think of them right now off the top of my head, but it's a respectful thing. It's not necessarily wrong to wish somebody happy holidays. So for everybody listening to us today, happy holidays. Anyway, I wanted to go into a little bit more about what we're doing and not doing, and I'm referring to our nation, being able to have healthcare insurance. Memo, does it impact you in any way?
No, I'm at an age that, when you get to the age of 65, that's some time ago, you qualified for the Medicare and all the package that we senior citizens, hate to say it, that's earned along the years that we relish. I think the impact is going to be greater on the younger generation that are paying the price, and to me, it's uncalled for, and I think it's because being that you're with the most wealthiest, powerful country in the nation, we should do better. And I think it's not a political issue, it's a right. That's something that
a human rights issue.
Yeah, it's a human rights issue.
To healthcare.
Healthcare.
To be able to have somebody see you.
And if you look at it, what is the true cost? And pharmaceutical supplies keep going up, and now they passed something about they're bringing them down a little bit because there's
1,000%.
Yeah. And the idea is that, it takes money. Yes, good doctors need to make a good living. But the idea, the medical profession, is what is the right thing to do? Do we turn people away because they can't afford it? Or we're a forgiving nation. If we can spend millions and billions of dollars helping people around the world, we need to start at home first. The hardworking citizens that go to work every day to stretch their dollar, we need to look at affordability. We need to look at some type of tax relief. The idea is that how much is too much? What comes first? Humanity? Those are the things that you have to look at. The older we get, I don't think it's wiser that we learn to appreciate life and good health, because that's the only good thing of value that you have is your health.
Well, a couple of things that come to my mind as you're speaking, and it's it just moves my brain a little bit here. One of the things that obviously I am very much a proponent of people having health care and never have it been denied anywhere in our nation. And what I foresee going on is, of course, people will come up with ideas and plans, and sometimes they back out, and say, no, we're not going to vote on something, because we're talking about the Congress. We're talking about people who promised that there would be a vote Now I understand they went actually to a charge petition, meaning they had to get a consensus of both Democrats and Republicans to come in and agree to say, yes, we need to hear it. We need to hear it because our nation's gonna be in problems January 1st when we don't have enough healthcare coverage for people. I don't see that as being right, to be honest with you, because that was one of the things that happened with the bringing the government back to work, was that there was a promise, and of course I'm not privileged to the information that happens, but the promise allegedly made that, bring us back to the government and then we can talk about how we legislate healthcare. To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we need to have healthcare. Let me tell you why. If you are in a classroom of 25 kids, 25 adults, and all of them are there, and one of them gets ill, and that person who's ill doesn't have an ability to go see a doctor, but then if they have and are transmitting something, they're transmitting an illness that impacts the rest of us, just because that person didn't have health care to go see a doctor. I mean, we call it individual responsibility, fine, but at the same time, what happened to the other 24? And that's why I say, let's insure everybody, let's cover everybody, because you don't know who you're sitting next to. Not only in a classroom, it could be a restaurant, it could be anywhere that you go and partake of society. It could be a football stadium, could be a basketball arena, things like that. That's why I wonder who's sitting next to me. Do they really believe in healthcare? And so,
healthcare is one of the necessities that you have to have. And the question is that affordability also. We all don't have the same economic base, that ability, and the idea is that it has to be affordability. Now, why is it that our elected officials have a good health welfare package, and they earned it for life? Why can't we earn the same? It comes down to numbers and cents, and then really the premiums. How true is it that this is the actual cost? When they say insurance companies are making money bent or backwards, there is a profit there, yes. But when you're talking about taking care of the poor, taking care of the sick, I don't think money comes to be an issue. I think it's just getting the help. It's rewarding.
It's a necessity, right?
Yeah, the necessity. It's not like putting a Band-Aid. There's people that have cosmetic surgery, those are luxury surgeries or whatever. But I'm talking the basic needs, the needs to help people survive. Look what happened to the pandemic. Everybody came to, money wasn't an item. It was just, let's take care of it. We jumped in it, but how many people really made billions and billions of dollars because of the pandemic? Was it created? Problem is that we don't know.
That's right. It's very difficult to sit back and look at the details. Yes, you have the Centers for Disease Control telling you it originated in this area. They can pinpoint down to a province because that's how advanced scientists and science is.
Yeah.
You can actually, I remember when we had COVID, it was trying to trace where it came from. So if two people had it or only one, well, they would follow that trail. And so it can be a scientific ability you are able to detect where it came from. So apparently scientists detected all the way back to China, some part of China, where they were actually doing some kind of contained, restrictive type of testing. And, who knows, but the information that I received, at least at that time.
So many theories, they were created for so many reasons, and the idea is that so many lives were lost. You know, preventive medicine has always been a standard of what we should be doing. One of the issues that we remembered way back, the polio virus, you know, the vaccine was created, you know, all of a sudden we have the technology to create, to contain it, but we don't have the technology to cure. You kind of find it far-fetched because there's no money in cure. There's money in treatment.
Well, I think we've heard that before, right? Like, never have we experienced such a rash of illnesses, perhaps, and we just don't want to find out what the cause is. We just know how to treat the symptoms, right?
There's money in treatment, not in cures. That's the bottom line. You look at it, we can put people on the moon, and all of a sudden when the need comes to contain a pandemic, we have the ability, by the grace of God, to find the antidote or the vaccine, and all of a sudden, but we don't have it. You know, you look at it, there's a miracle pill out there that can take care of it. A miracle pill that can stop you from aging. It'd be worth millions and millions because it's all about marketing. How much am I going to make the money? Look at the, back then, the people that, what was it, SIDA, or whatever it was called back then, where people were dying left and right.
Okay.
Now they control it. You
HIV,
can live it.
the AIDS.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. See that?
See that?
See that? Oh, no, that.
Yeah, I don't know that. But the thing about it is, look at diabetes. I'm affected with diabetes, and years ago, you got diabetes, there was a death sentence. You know you were going to die. Now you can live with it.
Yes.
You can modify
Control.
the diet, control it, and it's all about that. But you know, they find that cell that is going to take care of it, but they find out, wait a minute, can you imagine what the pharmaceutical supplies are going to lose if you wipe everybody out? You don't more need insulin, you don't need this because we can do this. So to me, I don't know, is there something there? You know, there should be no politics in medication.
One thing that it comes to my mind right away is you always think that you have it bad or something, but there's always somebody or
Worse.
something. Yes, well, and while we don't live by those rules, you know, it kind of tempers your understanding to what you really believe in. And I recall back when I was in my college days, it was prevalent, the HIV virus, and that was a death sentence, as you call it.
Yeah, well,
There was just nothing curable, and it's still not curable, but it can be now managed with medications. And yes, I have the same suspicions. Like, if we had ability to actually know what the cause is, why couldn't we cure it?
Exactly. You know, there's a lot of things that they don't.
Cancer.
Cancers are one of the leading things, but nowadays there are certain cancers that, you can survive. Survival rate is so great. You know, how about taking care of it and curing it forever? No, there's no money in it. You know.
So you think it's the bottom dollar, the one that
I think money dictates everything we do in life. I'll be honest with you. The insurance affordability can be affordable, but there's no money. You know, I'm not going to give you something that I'm not going to make any money. Life insurance. You know, one of the biggest scams is out there. The Texas state has finaled you an offer. I get these calls about final expenses. You know, the state already gave you $30,000. I said, but I have life insurance. And then you said, I can cover that. No, but I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just telling you there's something else. It's at a cost. Nothing is for free.
No.
You know, but it's annoying. You get them every day.
The spam calls.
Yeah, the spam calls, the robocalls, and you know, I think there should be a law against that. But you know, that's my opinion. But the idea is that you get them. I must get about 100 of them a day.
Yeah, and this is a great point. You know, there's got to be regulations, because when people come together and they organize and they dictate and they talk about what needs to happen, the only way you can impose it to everybody is through the lawful means, right?
Yeah.
The legal means.
Yeah.
I take it, for example, speed limits, right? Speed limits. I live in a neighborhood that I've seen an increase in traffic. And
holidays.
well, after school or maybe even during school days, where people are rushing to go to school, 8 a.m., 7:30 in the morning, and then come after school because they're rushing back home for whatever needs they need to do. But point being that I see an increase, and so I live in an area of town that has an increase because we
Well, the whole
have,
city itself is
they just finished developing a neighborhood in our area, and I noticed an increase. I'm not bothered by it. What I'm saying is, well, now we need to make sure we put the correct ordinances, regulations in place where we can regulate the speed of the traffic. I'm not saying get
And
rid
it's
of
very
it.
hard to, because you gotta remember one thing. You don't become the number one inland port without traffic. That's gonna create that. You have commercial traffic, and then you have non-commercial traffic, and our city's growing. You know, look at the.
But
as
how
you're coming-
hard is hard? I mean, come on, it's a residential neighborhood, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
saying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a residential area, and all I'm saying is say, let's make sure we put some signs, speed
Mm-hmm.
limit, remind people what it is, cause a lot of people don't remember.
See,
They
We're
they go
living-
between 30 and 45, I
Yeah,
said, no,
exactly,
it's
yeah,
30,
yeah.
it's 30.
But you look at it, look, Laredo has been a sleeping town for 50 years, 100 years, I would say. We're 50 years behind. You go to San Antonio, you go to Houston, you go to the Valley. It's a progressive mindset city that is growing, and they build roads to impede better service, you know. I live in the mines area. We've been there.
Oh, I mentioned that to you.
Yeah, you mentioned it, you know, the traffic is there, okay. Our district, I would say, generates about 80% of commercial traffic that benefits the city of Laredo.
In the state.
In the state
In the
also.
state,
I mean, you gotta
yeah.
remember one thing is, you know, we didn't ask for it, but guess what? It came to us. We embrace it, we control it, and we do the infrastructure to meet the needs of that. But don't forget the people that are living there. And it goes back to the other topic is that we hear now it's happening, and ordinances are made to protect the children and the residents. Protect also the commercial aspect. We can't forget
Correct.
about it, you know.
Right.
You know, it's a dual road. Common sense should prevail. You know, who does the city owe its allegiance to? Homeowners, the safety of our children, or big business?
One of the things that you brought up, and that's why I kind of deferred to you at that moment, was that, yes, okay, so it's my neighborhood, but it's also a city neighborhood, you know, so what they do here could eventually impact others
Right,
in others' neighborhoods. So all I'm really hoping that we get a little bit more police, I guess, protection. At the same time, you really just have to remind drivers what are the rules again. I mean, DPS all over the interstate has don't text and drive, you know, that kind of thing. So we need to remind our drivers also to be careful, to make sure that they don't speed, especially in a neighborhood where children are playing,
Exactly.
where they can come out and start jogging, or people are jogging or exercising, and they are jogging to the park or whatever the case might be. And yes, I do live close to one of the major parks in North Laredo. And so I always worry about that. Wow, you know, this car, if they don't watch it, you know, it's gonna hurt somebody. They run a stop sign, brake too late, have a car pulling out of their homes, and those are the kinds of things that. But that is why we have regulations to make sure that everybody gets considered. Everybody has to be considered, even in your area, even Mines Road area. You know, you have to consider it in comparison to the rest of the community. So what's rules we have for others, we have to have them for you, and you vice versa.
Yeah.
We have to follow the same rules.
You gotta have order.
You have to have order, yeah.
Mhm.
And see, that's what government should bring.
Right.
You should have ordinances or
What is right is right,
regulations.
what is wrong is wrong, you know, and the
Yeah.
idea is that for everything that is put in place, there is a purpose. Attorneys like to call it, what was the intent of the law? You know, and I'm not a lawyer, but you know, I've seen them and I've been around so many of them. You know, what is the purpose of the ordinance? Was it for self-interest, or was it to protect the individuals?
Yeah,
You know,
and that's where it gets kind of
Yeah.
a little bit difficult to determine.
Right, and that's what happens, you know. But the idea is that you have to understand that we as a society, must have laws. You know, we must have order. You know, and the idea is there's also
And then no one's above the law.
no
type
one.
of thing.
Yeah, I know what you're leading to that one, but no one's the one to
No,
put it
they,
on. Politics,
well, you hear it all the time.
yeah.
I hear it all the time on social media. You know?
It's like when we talk about it, you know, we say, well, no one's above the law. But, you know, there are laws that have to be rewritten. You know, they have to be challenged because they fall out of date. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, it's not that bad. I'm referring to the marijuana law, you know. The bottom line, there's more positive things.
More benefits.
Yeah, out of it because of what it does presume. But the other thing that I see is that too much of it can also hurt. You
Of
know?
course.
It warps your mind. You know, it becomes too. It all depends. You know.
Addictive also.
Well, I don't know if it's addictive. You can always it's willpower that really does it. But I think what it does, it slows you down. You know, I'm not saying because of my past history with it or not. I've never really found on it. I've never really. I'm old fashioned. I'd rather have my own drinks once in a while. In my days, I used to hug the toilet, you know, stuff like that. But the hell with it. I mean, I was growing up.
Man want too much information.
But the idea is that you learn from that. But you know what? I had an angel always hovering me because you know I don't want to set that pattern for my grandkids or my kids. My dad always told me, enjoy the party, don't be the clown. You know.
That's good.
And so the deal is that, you know, alcohol, weed, or whatever you call it, while you're driving under the influence, is a violation, regardless if it's legal or not legal. You know?
Yeah, and that legal term that you're using, I'm just pointing it out to our viewing and listening audience. Yes, it has to do again with it. You don't make rules. You do make rules perhaps in your household, but you have to be careful how it impacts the rest.
Exactly.
And so that's why government was established. So when people come together and they say, we agree on this type of rules, or we agree in this rules, you have to be mindful when you extend that habit or whatever the case might be outside your home. You do need to include the rest of the community so people have a chance to speak out. Mm-hmm. They have to have a chance to speak out and talk about what they're planning. Traffic was just one thing that I noticed mostly in my neighborhood more than that's what I was going at. But you know, once you get into other topics, it's exactly the same thing, whether use and abuse of marijuana or recreational use, whatever you want to call it. You know, those regulations have to be in place in order so that all of us can coexist.
That's true. No, it has to. You know, law and order. That's what we have to have. And respect for it, you know. But like I said, when there's a law that you can challenge, well, you challenge it to the court system.
Yeah, exactly. You challenge if you have a difference of opinion. Mm-hmm. Which incidentally, and I want to close this chapter, but it's still, I can't help but regurgitate this. What I saw recently on Facebook was a judge, one of those judges that comes out, has their own weekly program, and he was hearing a case of a young lady who just turned 18, and she was speeding in a residential neighborhood 80 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood. So she was stopped, and I'll try to make this as a short version. She was stopped, the police officer stopped her, found out that, you know, she was uncooperative. She did not want to sign any paperwork, what have you, which was fine. But at the end of the day, she was brought into court for being cited for speeding, for reckless conduct, and so forth. Turns out that the young lady was a daughter of a very powerful resident of the community. Mm-hmm. And the judge picked up on that right away. She had the best lawyer. And the lawyer wasn't even saying, we're not going to plead, we're going to plead not guilty. He was saying, we just want to ask leniency, give us forgiveness, you know. She did it. But the judge turned right around and said, look, what she posted on social media can't be lenient. I can't just not look into what she's saying. And the embarrassment that the officer went through because of her social media posts, that was a very interesting case I heard. Finally, she said, I'm gonna go with the highest level of penalty, 90 days in jail, add another 90 days for the reckless conduct, 90 more days for what you posted on Facebook. So it's a total of more than 180 days. And then I want 15,000 community service hours. I was just literally through the book. I said, no, and I'm not doing this to hurt her. I'm doing this to help her. She's 18 years old. And if she didn't get that upbringing at home, we have to do it here. We need to protect others. But the point that I agree with you completely, Memo, it's always been the same. At home, it starts at home.
It starts at home. Has to, That's where the child learns discipline.
Discipline.
That's basically it.
How to respect others.
Yeah.
Respect.
If you don't have that, well, you have a problem.
When I was doing my duties as a school board member, I used to recall doing those. What are the good habits? Go to bed early. Have a good breakfast in the morning. Get up, good breakfast. Get dressed, go to school to learn. That's your mission. That's your purpose. And so it was always trying to emphasize the good habits, and I would try to encourage the parents to do the same, obviously, but I can't control the parents. I can only control the child in the classroom. And we always tried, I know the school district always tried to emphasize that, because we have, again, in my view, we've always had wonderful employees, and including teachers, and we continue to do that.
I think there are some very good employees out there, dedicated teachers that you don't have that much.
Mm-hmm.
And they need
Well, you've told me before that you've had some good experiences with people, administrators. I have them too.
It's just the politics that gets involved, that murks everything. Why do we do certain things,
We also buy into those politics. Well, I'm not going to excuse people. We buy into it. We think that's the way it should be done, and we end up, looking literally wrong, and sometimes because we decided that we wanted that position, or we wanted to get it done better than others, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, we all are only accountable to us and others.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with you on that 100%. We are human, we make mistakes.
We make mistakes.
And we have to move forward, rise above that mistake and learn from it. Basically, that's the only thing I can say on that.
Yeah. No, and I know that there was already talk about certain things that happen more in your area, but in fairness to everybody, I haven't read all the material that's being put out yet out there. Maybe in a week I'll have a little bit more info. Maybe you also know more about how things are going.
The thing about it is that when you do an investigation reporting on what's going on with District 7, and you attack, you're hearing one side of the story. How do you remedy an injustice done to the children of our school and the residents? We have rights for developers and rights for businesses, but what rights do we have as homeowners that invested and bought on a dream? I used to call our fight a place of broken dreams. One of the things that we cherish in our country is the right to buy a home. And there are consumer protection laws are there, but it takes money. It takes money to fight these injustice. And it seems like homeowners have already tapped out, because if they're paying their taxes, their mortgage, their insurance, and when an injustice happens, the big developers, they have the money to fight. They have the money to change things, and to me, that's an injustice. Now, what has happened is they're doing a true investigation reported. Hear both sides. Hear why the ordinance was made. It was to protect the children. We live in an area where we move toxic materials in and out. We have a history of contaminations years ago where they had to take out a whole subdivision. We live in a dangerous area created by the needs of moving toxic furniture back and forth. There are hidden things that we don't know, that at night something can happen. you know, and we protect our residents. At the end of the day, we need to rise and protect our children, protect our homes, you know. Who does the city owe their obligation? To the developers or to the homeowners? Let me tell you, who does the developers need to sell their wares, to push their property? You know, you gotta have a common ground where you're respected. You know, it's not about the money. The legacy of what you develop goes a long way because money comes and goes. You know, what's the reputation of these people trying to sell stuff when they have no consideration of what they want to build? Instead of working with the community, they work against it. Now, on the defense of this young lady, I don't agree with her 100%. She's done more. She's led a lot. She's championed a lot of things. Air quality, the traffic, all of that, you know. And then they have the audacity. It's not about what she offended. She's standing up for the right thing. She's standing up for her constituents. And I support her in that.
There's a lot of things about the news that I've always been very supportive of, and I still am. News just reports what they consider are the facts. And until we get a full view and understanding, it's very hard, again, at least for me, to determine how things actually transpired. But I can tell you this much. I know I didn't get much of a chance myself when I was sitting to get my point of view across. And that's very interesting that, you know, it's difficult at times to get your point across. Do I have to go to social media to do it, or what happens? You know, but I feel that same sometimes injustice, and I do want government to work, and I want our leaders to be accountable for what they do. And until that, I'm going to continue to push that type of mentality. But I mean, I have very few. Everybody has their own chain, if I may say it that way. I don't know if that's clear for our audience, but you know, I have a school board member who represents me, and I expect great things from that. I have a city councilman who represents me, and I expect great things from that. Then I have a county commissioner, I expect great things. But even having said that, you know that they have to work alongside the rest of the people. They don't necessarily just get things done on their own. And so we have a state representative, we have a congressman. So I value who they take the time, and sometimes they don't get compensated, and other times they do get compensated. But you know, I have to realize that their position is not an easy one. So they have to be very careful, at least when they talk about the residents. Who are they talking about? Who are they including? You know, we're all very much aware that, you know, there's been a lot of discussion at the federal level with what was happening and what happened. And I know we could probably take a whole program on what transpired there in Congress. State rep, well, I think maybe to a lesser account, and then county, it could be even less. But city and district impacts us a lot. People just need to get informed.
They need to get involved.
They need to get involved. It doesn't mean they have to be out there standing. They have to at least read up on things, right?
You know, understand that both sides of the situation. You know, the injustice done to one is injustice done to everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Martin Luther King said it.
Yeah.
You know, so we can't close our eyes about it. You know, we have to look at it and see, hey, what's going on? You know, what was the reason behind the fact? Have both sides of the story. If you're really a true investigation, you hear both sides. It's all a one-sided.
Well,
that's been my opinion. Opinion.
No, you have the same thing. I mean, you try to be welcoming to both issues, because the story should run on its own merits. It should run on its own merits. So one thing that I kind of remind myself all the time is when I was sitting in a position of authority like I had, it didn't involve me telling an employee what to do. And I think I've covered that before. Like teachers, you know, parents don't come and tell the teacher how to do their job. You know, support them, help them, try to get there. And so that was one of the things that I always try to ascribe as a school board members. I'm never going to tell an employee what to do. I will tell the superintendent what he needs to do because he's the one I hired and fired. And that's why
That's
I
the way
try
it
to
should
get-
be, but-
That's the way it should be.
You know, how do you correct, how do you call it, a system that you have a city manager that can't operate because you have city councils trying to micromanage, and that's not allowed, but yet it's been a proven factor. She's not the only one that tries to get her point across. The people that have been out speaking out, and why are they saying, oh, well, this is what happened? No. The needs of the people come first. The needs and the safety of our children come first. There's no politics about that. And how do you correct an injustice? Who do you blame? People before us. I could sit here and give you a program of what really happened, because I was involved, and I wasn't gonna.
I know you've shared that before, and I
I'm not gonna
appreciate
stand on
that.
the sidelines. I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna say, not because the truth needs to come out. You know, for us to, it's time that the next generation becomes more assertive. Don't let it mañana. Don't let tomorrow come. Take action today. You take action today, not for you, but for your children, grandchildren, to have a better tomorrow. That's the only way things are going to change.
I think in our own, to the benefit of you and me, thank God, and others who do want to share that information, I think that's what we're trying to do.
That's what it's all about.
And we've said the word legacy before, but it's about, hey, what we see, we're going to be spokesman for that.
Yeah.
I'm not certain if it's not going to be good or bad, but it's just going to be factual. That's as much as we can, right here. Straight, factual, and straightforward, ladies and gentlemen.
One thing I like to close it is, you've got to stand and deliver. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
Got to stand and deliver.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
even if you go to jail, right?
Stand and deliver.
Well, we're almost gonna cut it a little bit short because again, this is the Christmas holidays, and I know a lot of people are in a holiday mood, and perhaps that's the last thing they want to be doing is listening to Mr. Castro, Mr. Castro. But you certainly welcome to send an email to us, frankly speaking 14@yahoo.com. And with that, I will say I bid you have a good day,
Merry Christmas.
a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye. That's good.